Hi there, in this video we are going to look at advanced levels. We're going to set white balances, we're going to adjust channels separately, we're going to look at cool little options that show us things like clipping to make sure we don't destroy the image. We'll look at a couple of options, let's jump in there now, before, after, let's get level advanced. Alright, in your images for O4 fixing images, open up levels 1 and 2. Thanks to the photographers Jeff Finley and Jacqueline Beals. I mentioned this in the first video, but anything from Unsplash, I've added the actual photographer's name because they've donated these images free to the world and you can use them commercially too. So just go to unsplash.com and check out these photographers. All right, so let's look at kind of advanced levels. In the Essentials course, we covered the basics. Let's go in a bit deeper now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Adjustments and I'm gonna click on Levels to make sure it's an adjustment layer. And one of the cool features in Photoshop is just clicking the Auto button, kicking back and saying, Photoshop, do your magic. Okay, and it's done pretty good. I'm gonna turn the eyeball on and off. It's pretty nice. But what you probably didn't know is I'm gonna undo. You can hold down the Alt key on a PC or the Option key on a Mac and click on Auto. And it just gives you like, that's the default when you click on Auto, but there's other autos. Cool, huh? You can just work your way through and say, is this the auto that I want? Like, think of them, don't worry too much about the names. Think automatic option 1, 2, and 3, and see which one works for you. If you find after a while, you're like, I always prefer this one instead of this one, you can set it as the default for that auto. Let's say we don't like any of the auto ones. Let's click cancel. One of the nice things you can do is this photograph here instantly when I saw it, I was like, this is gonna be easy with this tool here. Okay, the white balance tool. What you can do is you can tell Photoshop that I know, click on this, I know that that is pure white, probably. Okay, it's probably just white card printed out. So if I click on it, it kind of makes adjustments as that being pure white. So it kind of adjusts per channel rather than just kind of sliding these kind of 3 little adjustments. It actually goes in every channel and makes an adjustment because it knows what the white is and tries to counterbalance that kind of, we have a kind of a blue hue to it, which is not wrong. It's just what this image was kind of shot at. It's got that kind of Instagram grainy, moody feel. And that's why photographers will use something like this. I've just gone to Amazon and if you put in gray cards or white balance cards, you end up with these things. So what they'll do is they'll set them up in a photograph. Okay, so we'll set them up next to the subject. So instead of doing it in Photoshop later on with these white, gray, and black settings, okay, you can tell Photoshop what's black, what's gray, what's white. You can do it in your camera before you actually take the photograph. You can set the white balance, the 18% gray card, and the black. Perfect if you're doing product shots and you have to, you might as well spend the time there with your camera, getting everything set perfect rather than having to fix it all up here in Photoshop later. Okay, so we're happy with that. Let's go to levels 2. Let's look at a couple of other advanced features. So under adjustments, let's go to levels. And what we want to do is, let's say we just want to tidy this up this way. Okay, that's generally what you do with levels, right? Bring in these 2 houses either side before they're kind of like halfway up the hill, either side, and then you use this gray slider in the middle here to decide which way it needs to go, whether it needs to be lightened up in the midtones or darkened down. Well, what's really cool is if you dragging these guys, because after a while, right, it starts kind of going this kind of full black and you start losing details, but that happens quite early on. But it's hard to know, like, when does it start happening properly? If you hold down the Alt key on a PC or the Option key on a Mac while you drag it, can you see get this kind of like weird color that appears? And that's just showing you like over here, pretty much nothing's getting clipped. Okay, and when as I get closer into this hill, it's a little hard to do. I'm pointing at it with my nose. Can you see the tree down here? Okay, it's really dark in here. So as we make things darker, you can see it's starting to kind of that's all becoming one color. So just making you aware of what's happening. Okay, you might still have to go for it. Same with the whites, okay, click, hold, and drag, and it's just the opposite. They've inverted the colors, okay, to show you what's gonna start blending as far as whites go, and it's all this kind of white clouds behind here. You can still go ahead and do it. It's not wrong. It's just showing you that, okay, there's going to be loss of detail in here. And because it's the back of the clouds, I'm okay with it. I've been making sure things like the eyes and stuff weren't getting clipped by dragging these in. Now this trick here works on, it's not gonna work for the gray one because it's shuffling between these two. These kind of clip the ends, but this is just shuffling in between them. You'll find there's actually a lot of settings that will allow you to do that, okay, in your adjustments panel. If you start dragging a lot of these different options like curves and exposure, if you hold down the Alt key or the Option key on a Mac, and while you're dragging, it will give you a little visual preview of what you might be destroying potentially. Now I'm going to reset it to its defaults to get back to the beginning, and I want to show you another little trick. So we're dealing with RGB channels. RGB you probably know is red, green, and blue. They make up this image. Instead of dealing with all of them in one go, you can actually look at the different channels separately, okay, and adjust them separately. And it gives you a lot more fine tuning, especially when they're color cast. You'll find you can fix up the color cast in levels. You don't have to jump out to, say, color balance as the adjustment. So what I mean is, let's start with red, okay, and just do the same, okay, halfway up here, or just up the beginning of the hill here. I'm gonna do the same for green. You can use your shortcuts, okay. It is hold down the Alt key on a PC and tab 3, 4, 5. You can see it toggles there between red, green, and blue. Okay, on a Mac it is Option 3, 4, 5. So I'm gonna do the same here, bring these guys in. You can see it starting to get to a more natural color. There's some midtones that I want to adjust, and I find it really hard to adjust the midtones using these separate things. I prefer to go to RGB and do all of them in one big go. All right, so that's some more advanced Photoshop stuff. Okay, auto, if you hold down the Alt or Option key and click on auto, you get some extra adjustments. You might be able to set the white balance. Here for the clouds, you could click on this white one and click on the clouds. I find it never gives me an exact result. Using nature as your kind of backdrop, but as something kind of artificial like white paper, it's pretty good. Also remember, holding down the Option key on a Mac or Alt key on a PC, you can kind of check to see if you're clipping anything. And don't be afraid to jump in and fix the red, green, and blue channels separately. And that's going to be it. We're all ignoring the strange shaped mountains. I didn't notice them until halfway through this video. I've stayed grown up about it, but I feel like it needs to be acknowledged before we move on to the next video. Grow up, Dan. Next video.